souls don't go somewhere after death? What if they can be created, transformed, lost? Are souls eternal? Can they be destroyed? What happens to consciousness when it leaves the body? And does it ever end? Let's talk about where souls go and what it takes to get there. And we're going to begin that by reframing that so that it's not just about where souls go or where souls go after death, but places that souls can travel to. So that this could also include states of consciousness, levels of awareness, the soul experiences after the death of the physical body, and sometimes its experiences during life. Like so many of my explorations and the visions that I receive, it all started with a beautiful, wonderful client. Most of the stuff I get comes through dreamlands or from work that I'm doing with clients. Because if you're piloting something, if you're driving the vehicle, even if you're driving Miss Daisy, you're going to be seeing everything that Miss Daisy sees. So while I'm with these clients and the clients are asking me questions, they're asking me some out-of-pocket stuff sometimes, and I get to see all of the answers to these things that I've never even thought to ask. And this beautiful, wonderful client asked, can souls be destroyed? And immediately this flood of information and different things start coming in, things that I never even thought of, things that I had to change my own belief system to be able to understand, because science, right? So science says energy can't be created nor destroyed. So that's where I'm going with all of this, and I'm seeing answers, and then Cleopatra comes in, and I'm like, okay, let's clear the slate, clear the desk, because this has nothing to do with my client, and then I'm going to come back to this later, because this looks like some interesting stuff. And here we are now, having this session. So let's start simple. Let's start really simple. Your energy, your soul, obviously it comes to Earth when we have our human incarnation. This is the densest energy that your soul travels to. When your soul is in this body, it's not learning from a state of expansion and limitlessness. It's learning from a state of limitation, boundaries. It can't fly. It can't run superhuman speed. This is a boundary that your soul consciousness has placed on itself and incarnated into in order to learn how to live within limitations. This helps you develop. It helps you develop identity, compassion, discernment. We're here to have a full spectrum of experiences, from extremely happy to extremely sad, from bliss and freedom and acceptance of blessings to loss and destruction. We're here to experience all of these things that teach us about choices, discernment, compassion, empathy. We're also here to exercise free will. This is one of the only incarnations where we think that our free will doesn't equal what we're actually getting. When we're in other dimensional incarnations or out of Earth in general into some of the other spaces that we'll talk about in a little bit, we understand the full impact of everything. We understand how our choices aren't just our choices, but how we interweave through timelines, through dimensions, how our existence and vibration affects other existences and vibrations. There's so much to understand that we don't fully understand here in the 3D because we're in the densest place possible, is as humans in this incarnation. There's so much that we can't physically grasp about that. But when we're here to exercise free will, to understand how our choices will put us on a certain trajectory of our timeline, how our choices affect other people, how other people affect us, how we get to learn freedom, how we get to learn boundaries. Our free will is part of our identity. And it's very unique to humans in that way. Now, that doesn't mean not to animals. I just mean to our souls while we're here on the earth plane. We're here to learn how to integrate love into a form. When we're here on the earth plane, we realize that we are humans. When we're off the earth plane, we realize that we're energy, that we're soul, that is love, that everything is one. We have a sort of unity consciousness, or at least an understanding of it, when we're not in the densest place possible. That when we're here, we have to learn that. We have to learn that we are expressions of love. So we're putting an amorphous feeling of love and unity into a physical form so that we can express that love. Earth is where we learn contrast. There's a lot that we learn on Earth, but I think you already have a little bit of an understanding of the kinds of things that we learn on Earth because you're on Earth right now. It's easy for you to see where you're going, where you've been, what you've learned, your identity and your friendships and your empathy levels. It's easy for you to see that you're learning those things because you're currently here. So let's take a look at the places that you might not know about because they're not here. I'm going to put some pretty common names on these places that I've seen that souls travel to, and you do with it what you will. Put it into your belief system however you will, throw it in the trash can, whatever you want to do. This is from decades of working with clients, the things that I have seen when asked to track certain things, and this is the conclusion that I've come to at this stage in my journey. Everything's subject to change, right? So other than the earth realm, I've also picked up on kind of like a purgatory realm. In the past, I've called this a hell realm because to me, this is pretty much hell. And it's not. I'll explain why when I get to the hell realm. But for the purgatory realm, what I have seen through the same client doing work for this same person is that this is a transitional space. It very much looked to me like the souls there were suffering. And I had the understanding that there was an exit point here. I had the understanding that this really wasn't supposed to be as much of a punishment as it was supposed to be a place made for soul processing. Now, how I personally viewed this is when the soul left this earth plane, they ended up in this cylinder-shaped cave, like a vertical cave. And it looked like it was under the ocean. And inside of this vertical tube, there are infinite numbers of little caves going all the way into it. Now, inside of each of these caves is something that looked like an eel or a snake, a monster, if you will. And there was a cave, a different cave for each soul that came here. Now, it's my understanding that probably less than 30% of the population come here, and you'd probably be surprised the things that get souls here, because it's not always murder. Like I've seen where those kinds of people sometimes can just go straight into their next incarnation after hitting that soul space. And then there are people who end up here who've never committed a murder in any of their incarnations. Let me tell you about it. Just let me tell you about it. So I see that the souls, less than 30% of the souls who have ever existed here, come to this space of their own choosing, because this is the space where they get to process and integrate emotions that they didn't have the ability to process and integrate when they were alive. This is a space that they choose when they really need to release attachments, when they really need to release the ego, when they need to reorient before they move forward again. This is the space that they go when they are sure that they're not the person they want to be in life, And if they were to go and reincarnate again, they would not feel properly healed, prepared, informed, or capable of being a different person in their next incarnation. So they come here instead. And this is like the eels and the snakes. This is kind of like I don't know, I'm going to equate it to like a ayahuasca trip or something, because it's death over and over and over and over again. I see that each soul has its own little cave, and they go into that cave, and the snake eats them, and it eats them, and it digests them, and then the soul comes out the other side, exhausted, gasping for breath, and the snake eats them again. And this is what I see happening over and over and over and over again. The very first time I saw this, I had the feeling that this could go on for eternity, which is why I thought it was a hell space. They're suffering, they're dying over and over again. This goes on for eternity. What I ended up seeing is that it's not. There's an exit point. This over and over again eating, this over and over and over again ego death happens until the soul decides to surrender, to let go. And only in the letting go do they stop being eaten. And the soul ends up falling down the cave into the very black, bottomless seeming pit of the bottom of this cylinder. And I've seen that once the soul lets go enough and surrenders enough to reach that space, they're then catapulted up out of this space and into the soul space. Now, the soul space is what I would equate to as heaven. It's the space between lives where all souls go after they die, after they leave their human bodies, unless they choose to go over to the other space. And you might be thinking, why would anyone choose to go to that space? I barely chose to be a human, right? But when we're out of our bodies, when we're out of the human denseness, like I said, we understand so much more about our life path and purpose, about what we're here to do, who we're here to be. And if we truly feel like we're not good people, or like we're narcissists, or like we want better for the people around us and for ourselves moving forward, this is actually a choice that people make, to go there and to go through this breaking down, similar to how we choose to go through healing, how we choose to go through the plant spirit medicine. We choose to do these things knowing that they're going to be hard, but also knowing that there will be an end and we'll come out a completely different person, a better prepared person, hopefully just a better person, someone who's more powerful and better equipped. So when we go to what I call the soul space, but this you might refer to as heaven, this is a state of reunion for the souls, a state of coherence, expanded awareness. This is love, light, belonging, bliss. When we're in this space, it's like the coming home. It's the, okay, I'm back with you guys again. It's the meeting of our soul family because we know everyone. We're all from the same source. When we come back here, this is where we get to plan our next lives, or we get to play for a while if we want to play. And I've seen a lot of the souls that visit the earth plane are coming from the soul space. They're between lives. Maybe they're going through a little bit of showering and cleansing. They're going through some life reviews. They are meeting with their guides to plan their next life. And sometimes this process is very rapid, and sometimes it's extremely slow. There are people in this soul space who have not reincarnated again for hundreds. I think the oldest one there is probably they haven't reincarnated for like 1,000 years. But there's also people who, as soon as they go into the soul space, they can reincarnate in 5 minutes if they choose to. And a lot of this has to do with timing. We might think that it just takes time for them to go through this process, but the reality is that it's about the timing, how much time they want to spend on vacation before coming back as a human, and who they want to reincarnate with. if you want to reincarnate with someone who's still living but you're not, you're going to have to wait until they pass from their human life, go through their life review, plan their next life with you, and then you guys can reincarnate together. So sometimes it's just about the right timing that depends how long they stay in the soul space. And so a lot of the ancestors that are coming forward during sessions, the people that we're talking to, the souls that are giving us answers to things, a lot of those are souls that are in the soul space currently. So they've already crossed off of the earth plane and they come back to speak to us. And sometimes it's just their consciousness that comes back to speak to us. And this is why we can speak to ancestors who have crossed on and who have already reincarnated. Sometimes they feel a little farther away. For me personally, if I'm trying to speak to an ancestor who's already reincarnated, it feels like it's harder to reach them. But their consciousness still remembers, their higher self still remembers their family from their last life and still comes back to offer support and to give gifts to help activate them on their path. So is our consciousness, our higher self, is really part of that unity space, that all-knowing space that's talking to our past ancestors, that's reaching out to others, that's still working in the soul space. We have an amazing energy. Our consciousness is absolutely amazing, beyond belief. We have no earthly idea. We really, really don't. But when we're in that space, we lose ego. And if we have trouble losing ego, we might choose to go to the other space until we can do that. When we're there, we have such clarity and such a sense of peace. Can you imagine what it's like to be separate from your human mind? Your human mind is the part of you that tells you to worry. It's the part of you that doesn't have peace. It's the part of you that is afraid all the time. That is your human ego, which serves you well as a human and helps you learn discernment like we talked about, but it doesn't get to come with you when you're in the soul space. And without worry and fear, can you imagine how you would feel? That is heaven. That is the soul space. And it makes sense that if all of these realms exist outside of us, as within, so without, all of these realms also exist within us, meaning that through consciousness, you can have a state of heaven while you're on earth. You can live in peace and harmony and bliss and unity and remembrance and home. You can have that clarity, that connection and interconnectedness. You can have a peaceful, happy, heavenly life here. You can also have a life where you're constantly going through ego death, where you're trying to learn how to be a good person. You can also have hell on earth, where you live in that fear and that feeling of being eaten constantly. You get to decide, because as human, we're exercising free will. So these levels of consciousness can reach us here on this plane as well. Now, as far as lost souls go, from what I have seen, souls that get stuck on the earth plane, it's not always just because they've had a sudden accident and they don't know they're dead. Sometimes it's, again, a free will choice. They've chosen to stay on this earth plane. And it's usually not a choice made from a higher level of consciousness. It's a choice made from fear or loss or grief. In fact, I watched it happen one time where I was helping a soul cross over, and the soul was moving towards the light. It stopped and was concerned about their kids, their family, what was going on there. And I saw that soul come back. And I kept talking to the soul and convincing the soul it's okay to cross on. Your kids are going to be fine. Just we can send them energetic blessings. You can leave messages for them. It's time for you to go. You have to cross over. This is your time. This is your exit point. And then by the time they decided, okay, maybe you're right, and started moving over, the light was gone. That portal of death had already closed, and the soul was stuck here. And then this is why light workers come in to create those portals of death, or those portals to the other side, that help the souls cross over into the soul space, because they don't always remember or know that they can do that for themselves. They're in such a state of heaviness, they got stuck here to begin with. And you know that when you're in a state of heaviness, it's hard for you to help yourself. Sometimes you need someone else to give you that support. When you're sick, it's hard for you to take care of yourself. When you have an attachment, it's hard for you to clear yourself. When you are stuck, it's hard for you to unstick yourself. We just like to have that support. Now, this didn't happen in a matter of 2 minutes, so I don't want you guys to worry that, oh, if I don't immediately cross over, I'm going to get stuck. This is something that took weeks of convincing on my part. Let's cross over. And then they were like, oh, the portal's done. It's closed now. I'm stuck. But I was there, and I was like, you're not stuck. I'll help you. It's fine. We'll open it. Everything's going to be fine. Don't worry. And it's that heaviness, our choice that we made from a space of heaviness, from a space of loss and grief and fear, that keeps us here sometimes. And humans aren't the only ones who make those choices. A lot of animals make that choice too. And I've seen it. I've seen it more times than I can count, because I'm the person who I travel a lot, and everywhere I travel, I'm checking in with the animals on the side of the road. Your soul there? You crossed over? You crossed over yet? You need me? I'm that person. We don't see a bunch of dead bodies lining the side of the road, human bodies, but we do see a lot of animals on the side of the road. And that's why I've seen a lot more lost soul animals than I have human lost soul animals. In fact, the information I'm getting says that less than 7, like 5% of all Earth souls actually end up stuck on the Earth plane. That's like a tiny amount, a minuscule amount of people end up stuck on the Earth plane with no way to cross over. Animals, especially the ones we see on the side of the road, have been hit. So these are sudden things that suddenly they're confused, disoriented, in pain, and their energy might get a little stuck from them crossing onto that rainbow bridge and crossing on over. It's very rare that I see an animal soul choose to stay because they're worried about their young. I have seen it before, but usually it's because of the shock, the pain, the not understanding what's going on, that they keep trying to stay with their bodies versus crossing over. And that's an animal instinct, right? That's our survival instinct. We have to live. So what makes a ghost? What makes a poltergeist? What makes a disgruntled lost soul? Because not all lost souls are disgruntled. They might be in a state of loss or grief or even fear being stuck here. But very rarely do they take on completely negative traits and start to wish harm or negativity on the living. This happens when a soul has been stuck on the earth plane for so long that they're losing all traces of humanity and they're completely separated from the light. Can you imagine being locked in a dark room for hundreds of years where the only people you ever saw could not see you, hear you, or interact with you? Where when you saw food, you could not eat. When you saw water, you could not drink. I think that's enough to make anyone a little scary. So it's really good for light workers to know how to cross over souls. So if you do happen to come into contact with a very, very old soul who's disgruntled or angry or upset, you can help ease their burden, and cross them over. Lost souls become clients, just like living humans like you and me. These are people who sometimes need help. They need help letting go. They need help getting lighter so that they can cross over. They need help finding that light portal. And these are things that I think light workers should really know how to do with the help of Archangel Michael. But of course, if you don't know how to do this, I would not suggest just randomly, willy-nilly going about doing this, because you don't want to end up with attachments or portals in your house. So you can always just command them to the light if you feel like you do have a ghost or a lost soul around you. You can call in Archangel Michael and ask that that soul walk with the Archangel, and just let everything become light and neutral again. The goal is to get the souls that are not embodied off the earth plane. That is a goal. We do not want a bunch of random souls walking around on the earth plane. We want everybody to be able to be in peace and bliss, to have that homecoming and that reunion, and then move on to their next incarnation, and to keep doing that until they have experienced all things possible to experience and they go back to source energy. The one place we haven't really spoken about yet is actual hell. Hell. I mentioned a purgatory place that I kind of saw as hell just because of how torturous it seemed, even though it had a purpose. But I have seen an actual hell space. This is a space where souls go that they are trapped in for eternity. I don't see that trap door. I don't see anything good coming out of them being there. And I only see one soul there. This is important to note, because beyond personal beliefs and religion, I see one soul that has ever gone to a place that we call hell. And this is the being that you would call the devil, Satan. Whether this is a construct, whether this is an actual soul, I'm viewing this as both. I see that this particular soul is there in this space that we call hell, and it's creating the entire gravity of duality that we have here in the 3D. That is the darkness that is opposing and pulling source energy, the light of all that is. I see it pulling. It's creating a magnetism. What is hell? What is a hell space? Because I don't see him being tortured. I don't see him being super, like nothing's happening to that one soul. It's just darkness and depth and inversion, if you will. Hell is a deep state of separation. It is being completely trapped and separated from everything that's love, everything that's light, everything that feels like it grows and continues and moves. It's the opposite of source. It's the opposite of the soul space, the opposite of that heaven space, that peace space. This is pure fear. This is fear, guilt, rage, self-rejection, internal torment. Again, not a space of punishment, internal torment. And there's only one soul that I see in that space. And this makes me wonder, all the souls that may be trapped and turn negative, all of the souls that we think of as legions of demons, things like that, are they negative because they're in hell in their minds? Are they trapped away from love, from unity? Again, remember the lost soul? I said put yourself in a dark room where you can't interact with anybody, you can't feel pleasure, that complete state of separation and living in fear and self-rejection and self-torture all the time, you can have hell on earth. You can have purgatory on earth. You can have heaven on earth. These can be states of consciousness. Now, that one soul, in my opinion, is the only soul that is in what we're calling hell because of its refusal or inability to release his identity. And his identity is built on harm and fear. It's a deep attachment to control, to power, to resentment. It's the inability to accept forgiveness or forgive the self or forgive others. That is what I see hell being, and only one being there. There are also overlapping areas here. So this is where things start to get a little gray or a little shaded, right? So you have your soul space, but then it's not just a complete wall and then boop, we're in the 3D here. And it's not just a complete wall and then boop, there's hell over there. There's interdimensional frequencies happening between these spaces, which means that there are souls, angels, souls, who work in those dark realms that aren't technically stuck or trapped in hell forever. These might be those legions. These might be whatever you call the dark angels, the demons. And on this side, we have the light angels that don't stay in heaven or the soul space. They come to earth, they move around, but they're of the light. And these are beings that move back and forth between these portals, in these in-between spaces. There's also an in-between space that I'd like to talk about called the astral realm. The astral realm is not a final destination. It's a state of consciousness. And this is one of the only places like this that we're talking about today. Meaning that heaven, hell, purgatory, earth, all of these can be states of consciousness that you bring to yourself now, and these can be destinations that your souls choose to go to after your human life. The astral realm is a place that your consciousness can travel to while you're here in your human life, but it is not a destination that you will go to after your death. 0% of souls go to the astral realm after death and become stuck there. I have checked. I promise. The astral realm lives somewhere between the 4D and the 5D. If you think about Earth or humanity, this physical existence as 3D, 4D is the timeline that it lives on. 5D is the Akashic. It's the record of everything that's happened on the 3D and 5D planes. All experiences, all emotions, all knowledge, everything that's ever existed in the 3D and the 4D is written in the 5D, the Akashic. The astral realm lives somewhere on the 4D and brushes against the 5D from time to time. And this is why people have such vastly different experiences when they're visiting in the astral realm. We travel to the astral realm to experience life without a body from time to time. There's also answers that we find in the astral realm because the astral realm operates through symbolism, much like our dream states. We can't always force ourselves into a dream state, but we can use our consciousness to travel to the astral realm, and we receive answers there sometimes just by how things look. The astral realm can sometimes feel heavenly or neutral or chaotic and frightening. It's quickly shaped through thought and emotion. your belief systems, your expectations shape exactly what you experience inside of the astral realm. And this is your personal and your collective imagery. So that's where it's brushing with that 5D there. All of your personal imagery and beliefs are there, and so are the collective's beliefs and imageries, which is why sometimes you'll see things there you didn't know you knew because the collective knows it. But it reflects something back to you that can teach you about your life or where you're going or what you truly want and desire or who you really are. I shared one experience with you guys about how I went to the astral realm, or my guides took me there during one of my shamanic journeys. And while I was there, they wrapped themselves around my head and popped my head off. And this was frightening. I was like, what in the world, guys? I don't have a head. Why did you kill me? Why did you decapitate me? But it was a cartoonish type of symbolism that symbolized losing my identity, losing the ego, and being born new. This was a symbol that I was leveling up. This was a good thing. And I looked it up afterwards and realized that this is actually something that happens collectively. Sometimes when people are leveling up and going through their new person that they're going to be, their new identity, their new name, their new form, they actually see the same thing happening here in the astral realms. So there are reasons you can go there through journey work, just trying to let your consciousness let go and reach those realms. And when you get there, don't be surprised by anything you feel or see, and understand that it's based in symbolism. The astral simply isn't clearly defined. It is your experience. It's allowance. It's simply letting it be. And sometimes we meet other people in the astral who are just floating by, flying by, and you can wave and then move on. All of this started by one question asked by my client. My client asked the question, can souls be destroyed? I, due to science, wanted to automatically answer no. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. All energy that exists on the planet right now came from source. All energy eventually returns to source. And yet I heard, yes. My guide said, yes, energy can be destroyed. A soul can be destroyed. And this is where I get into the next story about Cleopatra. If energy can't be created nor destroyed, it's simply transferred into another form of energy. These are things like potential energy, kinetic energy, chemical energy, electrical, thermal, the total amount of conserved of energy. This is what we think of when we think of energy changing form, scientifically. These could be isolated systems of energy, meaning that energy doesn't change at all. It doesn't dissipate, it doesn't absorb, it just stays together in itself to be considered regardless of its background, of what's around it. This is kind of what I think of an isolated system. That's kind of what I think of when I think of archetypal energies and souls. Really listen to me and bear with me for just a second, okay? I'm going to get deep here. Gods, goddesses, famous people who have passed on. We may think that we're tapping into their soul energy when we communicate with that particular being. We are not. We are connecting in with their archetypal frequency. We, as people, hundreds possibly thousands of years after a particular person has lived, we do not know who that person really was. We hear stories about that person, and when we tap in, what we're trying to tap into is what that person represents. Meaning, when we tap into someone like the crone, we're tapping into what the crone represents. Wisdom, knowledge, the ability to see and move beyond the veil. If the crone was ever a real person, we would not be tapping into that person's soul. It's the archetype we're looking for. We do the same thing with famous people. Marilyn Monroe, for instance. If we go to tap into Marilyn Monroe, we don't personally know who she was. We weren't her friends. We're not tapping into her soul. We're tapping into what she represents, the symbol that we see in Hollywood. Now I want you to think of Cleopatra. Anytime you or I have had to connect in or tried to connect into Cleopatra, we're connecting into her story, the things that have been passed down in history books, or the things that we think she represents, whether that's beauty or power or love, abundance. These are the things we're really tapping into. And what I've seen, what I've been shown, much to my surprise, is that she is the only soul in history that has been destroyed. Hang in there for the story, okay? The only soul that has been destroyed. And what I'm seeing is that because of the nature of energy, it can be destroyed by being completely inverted. This is not scientific. This is a straight download. So if you think of energy, it looks like a 3D shape. It looks like something that you can grasp. It has potential to move, to become. What I saw of Cleopatra's soul was completely inverted, as if there was a human-shaped hole where her existence used to be. An inverted blackness, a flatness. There is something there that once existed that no longer exists. That is what I saw when I looked at Cleopatra. Now, there's reasons for this. A lot of different reasons. I'm seeing there's a lot of things that were tapped into for this to actually happen. When we think about Cleopatra, she had a huge following. There were a lot of people who knew her. And so she quickly rose to archetypal level. Even before her death, she had an archetypal energy of what people thought about her and what she represented. After her death, everyone continued to tap into the archetypal frequency of her, except magicians and men. Do I have to say more? You leave anything beautiful to magicians and men, specifically, when I say magicians, I mean specifically men with magical powers. And what do you think is going to happen? No offense, guys. I love you. I love you. You're wonderful. But what do you think is going to happen when you have something beautiful and you leave it to magicians and men? Suck it dry. That's what's going to happen. There were powerful men in her life who despised her, who were jealous of her, who hated her, who wanted her. And after her death, the sucking of that soul that happened, the taking of her power, the taking of her energy through magical means, the using of her memory for sexual purposes, she was sucked dry with no one there to help. What I'm seeing now is that that soul is starting to uninvert and come back to life. And it's happening through the help of the rise in archetypal energies such as Hecate, the crone, the female rise of power and the fall of patriarchy. is bringing her soul back to life. It's breathing breath back into her body. This is glorious. And this is something I would have never seen if I hadn't have been asked that question. Because who thinks to tap into Cleopatra's soul? She's coming back to life. And so I'd like all of you to really think about this using truth and clarity. Are you obsessing about a god, a goddess, an old famous person? Think of Marilyn Monroe. Right now, she's seen as a sex symbol, not as a person or a soul. And when we tap into certain famous people, whether it's the archetype or them as a person in their soul, why are we doing that? What are we trying to get out of it? Are we trying to work with it? Are we wanting it for ourselves? Are we jealous? Are we sexualizing it? Because there are effects to those souls and to those archetypes, to those people, by what we think we know about them just because they're famous, just because they're on a screen. Are we draining these people? Or are we blessing them, helping them to heal, helping raise them up, helping spread the message that their archetype represents? Right now, Cleopatra's message that her archetype represents is being spread, is being fulfilled. We've had movements of the divine feminine rising again, coming back into power. And by that doesn't mean a hierarchy of women up here and men down here. That means a community where women and children are in the middle as the heartbeat, as the life force, and the men around it, encircling it, holding it in, binding it, protecting it, and uplifting it. This is the true circle of life. That is a sacred spiral. That's the sacred spiral. And the more people know that, the more she's coming back to life. She is going to come down with like lightning, with a crack of power. And I bet you in 100 years, her archetype is going to be ruling over the world again. Give it time, because she's coming back. There's been a lot of information in this video, and I hope you were able to take some good to know things from it, apply it to your belief systems, arrange things, sit and think and chew on things if they aren't in your belief systems, and just be present with the entertainment of what comes with knowledge, the things that you can learn when you're asking questions, when you're tapping into these realms, and how you can apply it to yourself using your free will, understanding your discernment and your trajectory towards the future, allowing yourself to move between these levels of consciousness, and how you move between these states, between the heaven space, the soul space, the purgatory or the hell space, the astral realm, how you move between all of these just depends on your level of awareness, your ability to release versus attach so firmly to the 3D. It depends on your capacity for love and truth and expansion, your willingness to evolve, because these are all places that are very easily reached. It doesn't take a genius or years and years of training to be able to shift these things. A soul goes less about where it's sent and more about what it's ready to hold. What is your soul ready to hold? And what's it ready to hold right now? Because that determines your level of awareness. What are you ready to hold? And if these states exist after death, they likely exist within us now. The work we do here, releasing fear, choosing love, integrating truth. These are the things preparing us long before we ever leave this body. So I hope you take this information. I hope you travel with it. I hope you expand with it. I hope you find peace with it.